Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the channel again. We are doing a dungeon run, level 28 with this deck here, my Blood Mage Thalnos deck. And surprise, surprise, it's exactly the same deck as my Baron Rivendare deck, because I do believe that this is about the best deck that you can get for Dire Maul. There's lots of different reasons. I know that there are some different versions of this that runs Prowler and some sort of switch arounds, but me personally, I think this is probably the best dungeon deck to kind of run as high level as you can. Now I'm now sitting at level 29 dungeon with this deck, and I think if I get good relics I could possibly run a level 29 dungeon, but I managed to beat level 28 with very poor relics, and I want to kind of run through the deck and how I did it. So the deck is as follows. It doesn't really matter for Blood Mage Thalnos. I run Bane because I just think it's the best all-round talent, but realistically Bane or the Lifesteal talent are probably okay. There is a case to be made about Pick Lock. The only map that Pick Lock is good on is Kreeg, but that extra 2 gold can really help you, especially to secure the towers. So it depends. Pick Lock, Deadly Poison helps you proc the Bloodlust in Rage on certain minis a bit faster and can definitely be more helpful in defense, but also Pick Lock just gets you the extra gold, which is good. Exhume on Skeletons, which can really help you on Kreeg to take the towers, can really help you on the second level also to take the tower if you go for that strategy. Execute Bloodlust, you just want to make sure that you increase DPS of all your minis. I actually usually go with Bramble Burst. Bristleback is okay, but I think Bramble Burst is just better applying poison. Immolate, 100% for Fire Elemental, and then coming in hot is quite nice for Safe Pilot. The reason I like coming in hot for Safe Pilot is you can get, and you'll see in this run, sorry, I've got like something on my arm. Anyway, the reason I quite like something coming in hot is because you can get elemental minis gain stealth, which basically grants you Gnomish Cloaking Device and coming in hot, which just makes Safe Pilot like really usable and really good. So yeah, this is my overall deck. Let's go through the actual dungeon, the completed dungeon. I'm going to use my Epic Pen to do some descriptions for you and do some kind of like what's it called, tactics and stuff. I've done this all the time. You guys will probably be sick to death of it at this point, but hopefully if you're new to the channel you'll learn a little bit about how to tackle the bosses. Sorry if I'm looking away from the camera. I've got something on my arm. I'm going to pause the video and sort out whatever's on my arm because it's stressing me out. Okay, here we go. We're going to take Rich Purple Silk Rich who knows what that is called. It's the one that stops the hit on 4 and 5 cost minis. The other two are not great. It was the healing when you mine one, and then also the healing your leader over time. And considering our Thalnos is extremely underleveled, we're not that bothered about that. Right, tactics time. I've done this so many times, guys, but it's a little different for Thalnos because you have more options. Now, when you've got an AoE mage, so if you had like Pyromancer in your deck or Thalnos, you don't need to use Safe Pilot here. You can actually kind of wait for these guys to get closer to your base and then just drop a Thalnos and then Defias Bandits or whatever. That's usually good enough to proc the Bloodlust between these two, and the Troll will just attack one of the two, and then eventually the one that wins out the duel will go and attack the Troll. So you can deal with it in different ways. Often, if you don't have an AoE mage, you have to drop a Safe Pilot on their heads because otherwise there's no real way to stop them. The main goal of this pack is you do not want them to get to your base. You don't want the Darkspear Troll to start attacking your base. You really want to cause the Bloodlust Enrage effect to happen before the Darkspear Troll gets in range, because otherwise the Darkspear Troll will just eat your base. It will happen very quickly. Otherwise, getting this chest is quite important. Ideally, we want Defias Bandits here if we can, if we're not using them over on this side to defend. Otherwise, it's Fire Elemental, plus whatever else you've got. I usually like to save Execute to drop in this area. Often, if you spawn a couple of things in and they're there for a little time, you'll see lots more get spawned. We have one Mountaineer coming down. As soon as the Mountaineer is in this area, we want other things to get spawned. Drop an Execute, take down the tower, pop the Bloodlust, and yeah, hopefully win out. Take down this tower, push up, take out this tower. Once you've got both towers, this boss becomes a bit of a cakewalk, and I'll show you why. So, we're going to jump into it. When we actually click start, there we go, we're clicking start. So, good drop Skeletons, and this is what I mean. I dropped Thalnos. Now, I actually dropped Thalnos a little bit too far forward here, which is why I then immediately dropped the Defias Bandits in response. We actually do use and I'm going to see, I actually used a Safe Pilot over on this tower. As soon as the Safe Pilot landed, it dropped an Ogre Mage. You'll find that a lot of the time, the AI just waits until it knows that you've used one of your AoE minis and then it drops something. But luckily the burn caused the bear to go into overrage mode, and then I'm going to drop execute on top of these two Warsong grunts. Is the best way to deal with them. We've dealt a whole load of damage to the base now, which is absolutely fantastic. And with this, so this is something that if you find yourself in this situation, yes, you could just let the Ogre Mage get into range. We have a resistant fire elemental, so it can tank it. But there is a good way to deal with Ogre Mage based on the 2 minis that I've got in my hand. Drop a Quill Ball behind, and then exhume your skeletons here, and they should help you take the tower and also take out the Ogre Mage. And that is what I'm going to do. Get it close enough. Drop the exhumed skeletons behind. They will take down the base, and then some of them will go on to take out the Ogre Mage, which is just a really nice way of dealing with this side, and it guarantees that we get this tower. And that essentially sets that tower up for success for us. Now, we now have to go for the other tower. We're going to drop a Thalnos, because Thalnos is going to be the biggest threat to that tower, and then we're going to use our Defias Bandits to take out this chest. Also start mining as well. We're in a pretty strong spot now, though. I don't usually end up getting stuff done this early, but managed to do so in this situation. Going to use execute. The other option is just dropping a safe pilot. Turns out I actually didn't do that. That was actually a pretty good hold, actually, I would say, like a good hold from me in general. Mostly because I've just managed to pull a thread out of my shirt. I've had this shirt for ages, by the way, guys. Soylent sent it out to me when I had like a Soylent sponsorship for Twitter. No one follows me on Twitter. But I've used these shirts for years because they're amazing. It's better than the actual product. Don't tell Soylent I said that. Actually, you can tell Soylent I said that because I don't care. I don't even know if Soylent is still going. Nonetheless, the shirt they sent me is fantastic. Anyway, we've taken this tower. So this is now gone. We defended this tower. We are now set up to win. Once you've got these 2 towers, this becomes trivial. And I mean it becomes trivial. It really does become a bit of a walk in the park. And the reason is, I'm going to go back 2 seconds. The reason is this. When Warsong grunts spawn, you are going to execute the boss and the Warsong grunts, and it will do this. They will enrage automatically, and the boss will start to attack them. It will not only deal with very annoying big units for you, but the boss will start to take some damage from its own units. And a lot of the damage that you're going to deal to the boss is going to be dealt by its own units. And you really want to save Safe Pilot and your execute for those big moments, usually alongside. In this situation, I'm going to use Safe Pilot on the Ogre Mage, which is great. But then you also want to maybe primarily use execute on your Warsong Grunts. Like right here, bam, again, Warsong Grunts, and they are getting into a fight with each other. That's perfectly fine. I'm going to drop skeletons behind the Ogre Mage. Obviously, if I exhumed them, they would just die to the Ogre Mage splash AoE. But yeah, you can see, not even that close to overtime, we're already dealing a bunch of damage to the boss. You will find, on these higher levels, that you're going to end up in a situation where overtime is essentially mandatory. Like, overtime is ultimately just going to be a thing, and you kind of just need to accept that you're probably going to win your fight with this particular boss in that overtime stage, because it just takes a little while, the higher level you get, to actually... it takes a while, the little higher level you get, to actually get to a point where you're getting damage on the boss. The towers take up most of the time on this situation, but we take the boss quite low. As you can see, drop a Safe Pilot on its head just to deal a bit more damage. Now we've got Ogre Mage coming down the side here. Not that bothered. Like, I can basically just kind of cycle out execute at this situation because I know that the boss is low enough. So once you get to this point, you're like, don't really care about defending. I'm just going to cycle out execute, and that's a good reason. Execute is useful all the way through this dungeon. It's one of the most useful spells in the game for these types of situations, and boom, easy does it. Going to skip forward, and we're going to take... So we've got the option of Black Whelps, where you play Whelps when you play your leader. Chromatic Shroud, which I said is really good because not only does that give me a protected Thalnos, it also gives me basically Gnomish Cloaking Device for free, which makes it a pretty good relic in general. Going to jump into this boss, and I'm going to talk some tactics with you. So, right, here we go. So, there is pretty simple tactic, and this is basically the reason we include Fire Elemental. You spawn a Fire Elemental and you send it this way. You take this Meeting Stone, and then you just keep spawning Fire Elementals. Your whole game defense plan is going to be defending here or defending here. You can do that with Exhumed Skeletons. You can do it with Defias Bandits, Thalnos, etc. But defending and sending Fire Elementals down this way, because that is essentially going to win you the game. Fire Elementals will tank this boss. If you have Leeching, if you are lucky enough to get Leeching Poison, Fire Elementals will solo the boss by itself, because Immolate also procs from Leeching Poison too. So you will essentially just be able to have a Fire Elemental completely solo the boss. There is a side tactic that if you do get the opportunity, using your Exhumed Skeletons, you can actually take down this side tower with Execute, but it really depends on the situation. It's very easy to do, but also, you know, you need to make sure that you're also putting pressure on the boss. But we'll talk about it as we get through it. Like I said, relatively simple. We're going to spawn a Thalnos. This having stealth actually really helps in this level, because the eyes do not automatically chase your spawned mini. So the Thalnos actually gets away with taking no damage from the eye in this situation, because he didn't automatically get from the spawn mini. I'm going to use Exhume on the so I used Exhume on the wolf here, mostly because I don't want the wolf charge connecting with my base. Just helps protect damage, and that's actually really important. We have a Huntress running down at the moment, and I'm going to try and keep my Thalnos safe here. So one of the things you'll see in PvP a lot, but also in this situation, we're just going to turn the Huntress with a Quillbore. Obviously, Quillbore not the best at tanking physical damage, but yeah, you know, it is what it is. Now, what I really should have done here is probably looked to send Thalnos towards my fire elementals that go on the base, and this is what I attempt to do here. I did my Exhume a little bit too early, but we get pretty close to taking down the tower here, which actually works out really nicely. We get the tower. It does get blown up by the eyes, so it basically retakes it for the enemy, but we've now stopped the enemy spawning on this location, which is quite good because it provides us with a lot of defense. And the enemy will look to retake this tower as a priority, which, as you can see, has kind of left my fire elementals to do. Well, if you have a look, I sent 2 fire elementals to the boss, and look how much damage they have done with literally no support. Imagine if I executed them, they actually probably would have killed the boss, if I'm honest with you. But we're pretty close to winning at this point anyway. We're going to try and maintain control over this meeting stone area, just because we really want fire elemental. But we use the fire elemental in defense. We've kind of got to cycle out to it again, and as you can see, the Banshee took over our Quillbore. We are going to spawn out another fire elemental. Once we get this fire elemental, as long as it doesn't run into any major issues, it should be enough to help us get over the line and win the game here. But as you can see, we've got a bit of an attack offensive coming on. We've got the Huntress. I can't leave this Huntress by herself. If I do, she will just take the base by herself. So we have to kind of go for a defensive play here, which we do. And obviously we now have the fire elemental walking up towards the boss, which is great. We've got a bit of gold to mine over on the left-hand side. We didn't actually even end up bothering going for that side tower. As you can see, we do run into a wolf. We're going to use Defiance Bandits just to make sure that our Flame Elemental lives. The Flame Elemental living here is the most important part. And yeah, I'm just going to use Execute. It's going to get him low enough, and then with the Flame Elemental, drop a safe pilot on its head, and we end up winning. But I didn't really need to commentate that much on this game. Ultimately, Flame Elemental is OP on this level. It's the whole reason we include it in the deck. It's a pretty serviceable tank in general. It does help you on the 3rd level too, but it's just so good on the 2nd level. That's why we include it. So I've got Dark Moon Prize Wheel, which is absolutely garbage 90% of the time. Black Whelp Tunic, which basically drops well pegs in my base, but because we don't really do any defending on this level, it's completely useless. If you're defending on this level, you're not doing it right. And then we have Soul Seeds, which is one of the new ones. On death, you'll immediately leave behind a healing flower that heals the first ally that touches it, which is actually not too bad. So we're going to go for that one here, and we're going to get into the game. You notice I didn't lose a single time on this push, despite having pretty meh relics. So here, mount the defense whichever way you want, but when you have your spawn zones, make sure you drop Fire Elemental in this zone. We do want Fire Elemental to help with the grunts, but we want Fire Elemental to then walk towards this boss, because she deals elemental damage, and we want to make sure that Fire Elemental is there to tank and then walk up towards the enemy this way. Once she'll get taken out by basically Fire Elemental and a Quillbore by herself. We then want to take this tower. Feel free to use an Execute on the tower to make sure you get it. This tower needs to be taken with relative ease, because it's going to be where you're spawning most of your minis to support the push coming down this side. Kobold this way first, Kobold that way second. Boom. Easy tactics. Let's get into it. Exhumed Skeletons. Just trying to protect some damage on the base at the moment. These grunts will very quickly deal a huge amount of damage to your base, so you just have to be a little careful about it. I'm actually going to drop a Thalnos here as well. You can reset the grunts by stunning them, which is what I'm going to do with the Defias bandits in this situation. So they actually get reset in terms of their attack speed, which is great. But you can see quite a bit of spawn going on over on this side. I'm going to drop a fire elemental here as well, because unfortunately my Thalnos did not survive to the rather nuisance huntress. I should have really gone on reflection and exhume on the turret. Probably would have been more successful here, but it worked out okay in the end. It's not too bad. Going to drop a Thalnos in support of this fire elemental, and yeah, looking to probably execute this tower, because we want to make sure this tower goes down. We don't want to end up being too far behind, and also taking this tower, make sure we stop spawns, which is also very important. Keeps our base pretty safe. The enemy will very rarely spawn anything down this lieutenant's side. In fact, we ignore that, and I probably didn't mention it. We just ignore that lieutenant completely. That lieutenant gets completely ignored. The reason that lieutenant gets completely ignored is primarily because we don't care about the anti-heal. The tactic that we run is we're going to spawn a load of unbound minis behind the healer, and then we're just going to execute it and hopefully kill it. And then therefore all that this mini serves, all this lieutenant serves is to be a pretty crap tank who then dies and poses a threat to our base. He's melee, so he will always draw aggro very quickly from the boss, whereas this lieutenant is ranged, and you can usually keep her safer for longer. And she provides you with the Wither debuff, which reduces his attack speed, which is really important, and this boss is practically impossible without it. So, yeah, there we go. Kind of explain things now. So we're going to drop another fire elemental here to try and help deal with the ogre mage, and now we're going for the tactics. So making sure we do spawn the gold generation. We do need it. That gold generation proves very useful, but we are dropping all of our unbound minis onto this healer, and now we are just waiting to get enough gold to get the execute, which is why we skeletons and ogre mage and everything's just really useful. So we did it in one execute. So what the old tactic used to be, you would just cycle executes on the boss, but just going for the unbound spam into execute is usually much more successful. And as we can see here, we're going to try and get an earth elemental just in front of Thalnos to make sure that Thalnos does not get automatically targeted by the boss, and he doesn't, but he does get hit by a rather annoying ghoul. Otherwise, Thalnos probably would have finished this out relatively quickly. But nonetheless, we're in a really good spot. The boss has taken so much damage. Like, even if it went wrong, we could just probably execute the boss down and just hope to survive that way. But this was a really simple final boss kill, because the tactics are just so smooth when you know what you're doing. And boom, full dungeon clear. I was don't know where I've gone with my whatever. I don't know what I've done to it. We won. Boom.